When the bombs fell in Fallout, humanity didn't just survive, it changed. Some were immortal monsters, some became mindless experiments, and others were trapped in bodies that should have died centuries ago. The wasteland created many different hells for the people who survived. Some were created by the radiation, some by science, and one transformation may have come from something even darker. But we'll get to that later. So the question remains, what is the worst fate a human can suffer in the wasteland? Not everyone exposed by radiation died after the bombs fell. Some became something entirely ghoulish. Stated the name, ghouls. Humans whose bodies were twisted by radiation but somehow survived with their skin decaying, their voices cracking, and their appearance becoming increasingly monstrous over time. Yet many ghouls could live for centuries, but the worst part, their minds would slowly begin to fade. Over time, one would lose all sense of identity, eventually becoming a feral ghoul, a creature only driven by instinct and violence against anything unlike its own. Centaurs, perhaps the most disturbing creatures ever created in the wasteland. These creatures formed from the first failed experiments of the Forced Evolutionary Virus. Instead of creating powerful super soldiers, the virus forced human beings and human flesh together. These bodies twist into grotesque forms of limbs and muscles, dragging themselves across the wasteland like living tumors. But it gets worse as they still carry the human faces embedded into their bodies, a horrifying reminder of the people they once were. The Ghost People. Among one of the most tragic fates of the wasteland are the Ghost People of the Sierra Madre. They were once ordinary humans like you and I, but then they got trapped within the toxic cloud surrounding the casino. Their hazmat suits fused permanently against their bodies. Now they wander aimlessly around the red fog. Gunfire barely slows them down, their bodies refusing to ever die. Only dismemberment or complete construction can ever let them rest. A living corpse, forced forever to be entrapped behind those suits that were once meant to protect them. Super mutants. Human beings first changed by the Master and later the Institute, remade into super soldiers from the Forced Evolutionary Virus. They were turned into massive green giants that possessed immense strength and durability, radiation and disease resistance. But the transformation came at a terrible cost. They are sterile and have lost much of their intelligence. While many still retain their minds, most become violent monsters compared to the people they once were. The Scorched. In Appalachia, another terrible fate awaits. Victims of the Scorched Plague slowly lose control of their own bodies and minds. At first, they resemble burned and cracked versions of humans, but then the infection does something worse than simple mutation. It links them all together. The Scorched become part of a hive mind, sharing a single intelligence. Their individuality disappears. They're able to use tools and weapons like men do, but with no individual thought of their own. Then eventually, their bodies turn into petrified statues, frozen forever in their final moments. The Trogs. Deep within the ruins of the pit, a disease known as troglodyte degradation condition slowly transforms humans into something primitive. The final stage creates something known as the Trogs, hairless beings with pale yellow skin and twisted limbs. Their bodies bend forward, forcing them to move around like that of primates. All higher intelligence disappears. What remains is pure instinct. They hide deep within the ruins of the city, hunting in packs for anything that is not a Trog. The Swamp Folk. In the swamps of Point Lookout, an island that remains with humans still intact, the Swamp Folk, at least what we would consider still human, Generations of radiation exposure, disease, and extreme inbreeding have twisted their bodies into grotesque forms, sunken skulls, deformed limbs, and incredible strength. Unlike many creatures of the wasteland, they still retain a form of intelligence, speaking in a broken, garbled English, fragments of humanity, barely still holding on. Spore carriers. Inside Vault 22, an experiment with mutated life led to a horrifying result, a fungus capable of infecting humans. Those, after they died within the vault, did not stay dead. The fungus colonized their bodies, forcing the corpses to rise again, their skin turning green, covered in plants as their movements became unusual, a mindless puppet spreading the infection to anything nearby. At the very least, the people that were once there were already gone. The mole miners. When the bombs fell, some miners were still trapped underground. Radiation isolation slowly changing them. Now known as the mole miners, they are hunched, disordered figures sealed beneath their mining suits, still able to use equipments like men. Their voices are muffled and barely understandable, yet they remain deep beneath the earth for any unforsaken soul that runs upon them. Lobotomites. In the strange laboratories of the big mountain, science pushed far beyond its limits. Humans were capable and surgically altered. Their brains were augmented on with crude technology, and their victims became the lobotomites, aggressivized and nearly mindless servants wandering the wastelands. Experiments that were not meant to survive yet do. The abominations. What once were human now changed into half-alien hybrids from the Zeta aliens who'd abducted human beings for their sick experiments. By the name itself, they are abomination all of their own. Faster, highly cognitive creatures, elongated and with a use unknown by man. But I would not want to be one of the humans who had to discover the fate of the wendigos. But even after all of this, one fate may be worse than all the rest. The wendigo. Tall skeletal creatures with elongated limbs and skull-like faces. Fast, agile, intelligent predators that stalk the wasteland. Many believe the wendigos were created when humans turned to cannibalism in desperate times. But is that true? If that is, then these monsters were not just recreated by radiation or science, but by one of the darkest parts of human nature itself. Out of all these horrible fates in the Fallout universe, which one would actually be the least horrible? If I had to choose, becoming a ghoul would probably have to be the best outcome. Most ghouls get to keep their intelligence, their memories, and their personality, at least for a while. Eventually, you will lose it, as you lose most things in life. Death comes for us all, and it's inevitable even for the ghoul. But in some cases, you could live up for hundreds of years and still be able to grasp onto that intelligence and that tangibility that still makes you human. Compared to becoming a super mutant or slowly becoming a trog or worse, being fused into something like a centaur, being a ghoul might actually be the closest thing to survival. But the truth is, in the world of Fallout, there really isn't any good outcomes, only different nightmares. So if you had to choose, which fate would you take?